The paradox of HTS Damascus, covered in ruins, is now patrolled by HTS fighters. For some Syrians, tired of war, they are liberators who overthrew a brutal regime. The black flag waves, symbolizing hope for some, terror for others. But many only see one dictator replaced by another. HTS, born from Al-Qaeda, forces a radical view and rules with an iron fist. Those who disagree are silenced. Women and activists live in fear. The group seeks international legitimacy, but their repression speaks louder. In Idlib and beyond, the promise of order hides Islamic courts and strict social control. Are they heroes or tyrants? The answer is complicated and painful. Syrians now face an uncertain future, trading one monster for another. The HTS victory raises a question. At what cost did this new order come? The cycle of oppression continues, just with new faces. Syria's future remains haunted by this choice. To understand HTS, we need to go back to the chaos after the 2003 Iraq invasion. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, led by al-Zarqawi, grew in the instability, training a generation of jihadists. Among them was Ahmed al-Sharaa, later known as Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. Jolani fought in Iraq, learned tactics and ideas, and saw a new chance in Syria. With the Arab Spring and Assad's harshness, Jolani was sent to start Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda's Syrian branch. Nusra brought order, money, and a global vision to the Syrian conflict. They weren't just rebels, they were strategists, ready to use the chaos. The nightmare of Iraq was happening again in Syria, now with a new name and face. Jolani used Syrian desperation to build a jihadist army. So, the seed planted in Iraq grew in Syrian soil, changing the war's path. Nusra's rise marked the start of a new time of extremism. The cycle of violence got worse, with terrible results. Jabhat al-Nusra won hearts and minds, but always had a hidden agenda. On the battlefield, they were effective. In the cities, they gave out bread and fuel. They became popular, seen as honest and disciplined. But soon they forced their strict version of Islamic law. Music banned, women veiled, public punishments. Their own courts weakened local rule. Rivals and those who disagreed were removed without mercy. The two sides were clear. Protection and repression went hand in hand. Civilians lived between order and fear, negotiating their freedom daily. The safety Nusra brought came at a high price. Freedom from Assad's rule turned into a new kind of oppression. The dream of freedom became more and more distant. The Syrian jihadist scene broke apart with the rise of ISIS. In 2013, Baghdadi tried to merge Nusra with ISIS, but Jolani refused, loyal to central Al-Qaeda. The split led to a bloody war between former allies. ISIS was more brutal and global. Nusra was more focused on Syria. Under international pressure, Jolani cut formal ties with Al-Qaeda in 2016. The group became Jabhat Fateh al-Sham and then Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, trying to seem nationalist. The change was only on the surface. Leadership and ideas stayed radical. HTS put down rivals, protests, and kept up authoritarian practices. The mask of moderation was for outside. On the ground, control was relentless. HTS wanted to be removed from terror lists, but little changed for Syrians under their rule. The group gained power by getting rid of other options. The jihadist emirate was forming, looking legitimate. For the people, the repression stayed the same. In northwest Syria, HTS built a pseudo-state. They created the Syrian Salvation Government, SSG, managing services and enforcing order. Sharia law was enforced by an ever-present religious police. HTS courts judged everything with harsh and public punishments. Disagreement was crushed. Activists and journalists disappeared. Rival rebels were eliminated or absorbed. HTS became the only military and political authority in Idlib. They invested in teaching young people, training them for a future jihadist life. Education, security, and law were under the group's complete control. The goal, to shape society in HTS's image. The present was authoritarian, the future carefully planned. The jihadist emirate was becoming stronger, stifling other options. The population lived under constant watch and fear. HTS built a self-sufficient economic empire in Idlib. They controlled borders, especially Bab al-Hawa, charging fees on everything that came in. Internal taxes, like zakat, were required for farmers and traders. Even displaced people paid rent for tents in refugee camps. Front companies took over key sectors like fuel and telecommunications. Smuggling oil and goods was common, funding the war machine. Economic control allowed them to reward allies and punish opponents. The survival of the people depended on HTS's goodwill. The group used the economy as a tool for social control. The pseudo-state thrived while the population was kept under strict control. Money was power, and HTS knew how to use it. HTS sought international legitimacy while strengthening internal power. Jolani traded his uniform for a suit, trying to present himself as a practical nationalist. He promised to protect minorities and not threaten the West. The relationship with Turkey was confusing, officially hostile, in practice cooperative. Turkey prevented regime offensives and sometimes helped HTS expand. With the West, there was distrust, but Assad's fall forced practical talks. HTS used international divisions, presenting itself as the lesser evil. They knew the West feared ISIS more and that Turkey wanted to control refugees and Kurds. Israel saw Iran's weakening as positive. HTS navigated these waters, remaining essential. The group was skilled at manipulating external priorities. The diplomatic game was risky, but so far it worked. The international dilemma remained: negotiate or isolate. Idlib relies on international aid to survive. HTS controls the flow of billions in food and medicine without directly stealing. NGOs only work through partners approved by the group, many controlled by them. Fees and rules make sure loyal areas get help first. Aid becomes a tool for rewards and punishments. Control over aid strengthens HTS's authority and hides its reliance on outside donors. Civilians see the group as a provider, increasing their dependence. NGOs face a moral problem: help and strengthen HTS or abandon millions. The international community, with no other choices, ends up funding the jihadist pseudo-state. HTS turns the humanitarian crisis into a tool of power. In July 2025, HTS controls Syria, but victory brought only new dangers. The group remains a harsh dictatorship, still seen as terrorists by the world. The country is broken, poor, and traumatized. HTS's biggest strength is its ability to adapt. They change their name, but not their core. They might try to reinvent themselves as a political party, but the repression continues. While the world is distracted, HTS digs in deeper. Civilians live in fear, trading one tyranny for another. The freedom dreamed of in 2011 seems out of reach. Women, activists, and minorities are especially at risk. The cycle of oppression has only changed who is in charge. The rise of HTS shows the world's failure to protect civilians. The group is a sign of state collapse and global abandonment. The world watches, frozen, as the Syrian time bomb keeps ticking. The results of this new rule will be felt far beyond Syria's borders.